What is going on, guys, and welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name is Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Runs show. I hope that your day is going absolutely fantastic. Now, we're nearing the midway point of this year's college basketball season, and people are starting to talk about who the teams are to beat in this upcoming March Madness tournament. People are talking about the Gonzagas and the Baylors of the world, but what about my Michigan Wolverines, who at the time of me filming this video have a record of 11-0, are playing some fantastic basketball, beating a bunch of ranked teams, and have blown out pretty much every team that they've played so far this season. Today we're going to break down sort of what I've seen at each part of the Wolverines roster, and I'll also give you my perspective on how I think the Wolverines are going to finish in the upcoming games of the Big Ten schedule. Now, to break down the Wolverines, we have to start with Juwan Howard, and what a fantastic job he has done with this program. He's a second-year head coach, and this is really a year where for the Wolverines, it was supposed to be a rebuilding year. Now, I know in college basketball you can't really rebuild, but this is essentially as close as it gets when you talk about losing Xavier Simpson, losing John Teske, not having a fantastic recruiting class with high-end recruits like we're going to see in 2021. But talk about Juwan Howard building a program, building a scheme that he's really able to get all the players buying into, and everybody fits into the role absolutely perfectly. And that's not even talking about the position that Juwan Howard is bringing the Wolverines continually into, especially looking at the #1 ranked nationally recruiting class that they have incoming for 2021. I've just been so impressed with Juwan Howard, a new college basketball head coach with a very talented coaching staff has been able to do, particularly this season for the Michigan Wolverines. Moving over to the roster, we'll start in their starting lineup with Mike Smith. And I think Mike Smith is a very interesting player for the Wolverines. Transfer out of Columbia, was a fantastic scorer over in the Ivy League for Columbia. And rightfully so, there were really some questions along with him coming over to Michigan and the Big Ten. People were wondering if an Ivy League scorer would be able to transition to the more competitive games that are found, in the Big Ten, and the talent that's on the opposition night in and night out. And also, would Mike Smith be able to fill in the massive shoes that Xavier Simpson left, really being one of the top point guards in the entire country and in all of college basketball when we look at what he's been able to do for the Wolverines in the past couple of seasons. But Mike Smith has not disappointed at all. Scoring numbers are a bit down. He's averaging about 9.2 points per game, but he's scored when he had to. Obviously, the numbers are down just because of the overall talent that the Wolverines have in comparison to the starting lineup that you would have seen on Columbia. But he's a guy who can rebound the basketball, a guy who's fairly good defensively, a guy who can move around the basketball. Not necessarily a replacement for Xavier Simpson, but he's definitely doing a very good job of filling the shoes, working right inside with the program. He works really well with everybody else in the starting lineup, and I've been really impressed sort of what I've seen to this point in the season from Mike Smith. At the shooting guard, obviously, we got Eli Brooks. His numbers are a bit down this year, again, rightfully so. Really, every one of the 8 players who plays larger portions of minutes for the Wolverines has been very good this year. And again, just fits into that system. Eli Brooks has been a bit inconsistent though, but again, he's a great three-point shooter when he's on. One guy that I really wanted to focus on was Franz Wagner, who had high expectations coming into this year. Now, last year, his stats were a little bit tainted because he had the injury at the start of the season, but people were ready to see what Franz Wagner could do in a full, healthy season. We saw him sort of improve his stats later last season, but he's been really solid this season. The big thing with Franz Wagner is consistency. Can he, especially shooting numbers, can he keep those numbers as high as they've been, at least in the past few games? But sort of more people are starting to recognize what Wagner can do, and we heard it a lot in the Wisconsin game, but I've been saying it really ever since last season. I think Franz Wagner is probably the best draft prospect that the Wolverines are going to put out because he's just so versatile. He's a good scorer. He can slash. He can shoot from three. He can get to the line. He's great defensively. He's a hustle player. He can guard multiple positions. Franz Wagner can do it all. And what was really impressive is what he did over the quarantine stretch. You know, he trained with his brother Mo, who Wolverines fans also know, added on a bunch of weight, and he's looking like a much more complete, talented player this year. At power forward, obviously, we got Isaiah Livers, another fantastic year, but we expect that from Livers now. Thankfully for Michigan fans, you know, we knew how big of a move it was, you know, for our success this year that he didn't end up going to the NBA draft and stayed with the Wolverines. But when you look at a player who's just the backbone of this Michigan team and his veteran presence, you know, what he can do in terms of scoring the ball, great defensively as well, fills up the stat sheet, can rebound, can facilitate as well. Again, one of our more veteran players. He's just been fantastic, really over the course of his entire Michigan career. But with Simpson and Teskey leaving again, we really needed him to step up this year, and he's done just that, not disappointed, averaging the second most points on the team after Hunter Dickinson at 13.8, and again, 5.5 rebounds, 2.3 assists, and he's been active on the defensive side of the floor. And then obviously at center, you know, what fantastic performances we've seen so far from Hunter Dickinson, the freshman. And I don't think people realize that this guy was not one of the top guys of the recruiting class. You know, he wasn't even inside the top 30. But what I've seen from Hunter Dickinson this year has been absolutely fantastic. And going into each game, we tend to sort of forget that Hunter Dickinson at the end of the day has not had a lot of experience at the college level. And we have such high expectations for him already. And what's been really impressive about Hunter Dickinson is that he's just so mature for his age. And he looks like he's played college basketball for years now, but he's really only played just 11 games at the college level. He's so mature in terms of what he can do with his footwork, what he can do in the post. He's a fantastic scorer, and a lot of that credit does go to Juwan Howard, who clearly has just done a fantastic job working him into the rotation. But leads the Wolverines in points per game with 17.5, has just under 8 rebounds at 7.9, can facilitate a bit as well. We've seen him make some nice passes from down low as well, and we've seen him increase his block numbers in the past few games. He had 3 blocks against Wisconsin, 1.5 blocks on the season. And again, this kid is only going to get better with more and more experience at the collegiate level, and I've been really, really impressed with what I've seen from Hunter Dickinson so far, as I think a lot of other Wolverines fans would say. Moving on to the bench, Sean D. Brown. I mean, this is one of my favorite players on the Wolverines. We talk about a guy who can score the basketball and do it quickly. I mean, we're talking about Sean D. Brown. When Brown gets hot, I mean, he's a fantastic three-point shooter, shooting just under 40% from 3 at 39%. Little inconsistent at times, but when he's hot, again, he can score in bunches. Just a fun player to watch, and again, he's another guy from the Wolverines who has just bought into the system. And as Isaiah Livers said, you know, a few days ago, everybody, especially defensively, has really, really bought in, and Shawnee Brown is no different as well. Then we got Austin Davis, obviously playing a pretty big role this year, backing up Hunter Dickinson. Did a fantastic job in previous years backing up John Teskey. But he's doing another great job this year. Battling injuries a little bit, but he's a gritty player. Can score the ball a little bit. Really, really just fundamentally sound, I would say, down low, and he can get you extra chances on the glass. And then we got Brandon Johns. Saw a bunch of him last year with Isaiah Livers injured. We saw him sort of, even in the starting lineup, we know what he can do defensively, get you extra possessions, but also as a scorer on the wing. As for Michigan and the rest of the season, obviously still some really, really tough games to go. Still the better part of that Big Ten conference schedule coming up. Still haven't played some of the more prolific teams in the conference when you look at Iowa and their fantastic scorer in Luka Garza, who's leading all of college basketball. But it should be exciting. Our next game is on Saturday against 23 Minnesota Golden Gophers, who we've already played, and we beat quite heavily, so should be another exciting one. Another opportunity to get a ranked win, and also, against a team who's probably not going to be ranked come Monday, but a great opportunity again for Michigan to extend their winning streak. Minnesota, again, if you didn't watch that game, is very talented, especially in terms of their guard play. Their best player is Marcus Carr. He's a guard who can score, shoots pretty well, and a little different from the Wisconsin game, who had, really good bigger men when you look at Nate Reavers, even though Hunter Dickinson did really, really well against their veteran bigs, possibly having to defend a little more on the outside perimeter. So should be another good test for the Wolverines. But again, still the heart of the Big Ten schedule to play, so I don't want to get too hyped on the Wolverines, and I like where their heads seem to be at in the media about just keeping their heads down, taking one game at a time, not really playing down to any of their opponents, which they've been doing such a great job so far of this season. But let me know your thoughts on the Michigan Wolverines, what you've seen so far, down in the comment section below. Let me know what you think of each one of the players. What do you want to see? What do you think has been really good so far? If you did like today's video, make sure to leave a thumbs up. Subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs for more content just like this. I love covering the Michigan Wolverines. I do post-game shows after pretty much all of their basketball games, and I do Wolverines talks periodically throughout the week. So if this is the type of content you like, hit that subscribe button. Make sure to stick around. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.